Hello, welcome to Revealed. This week, who do we have? A prominent person, a prominent sports personality who has worked his way through and through in terms of sports, especially football. He was a former boss, that's the chairman of the Ghana Football Association, currently a CAF Interclub Committee member and FA Cup Committee chairman or president, if I should put it that way. He's been keen in helping develop the sport. We take a break. When we return, we'll reveal our guest on Revealed. You're welcome back. And who do we have tonight? Let me go straight. His name is Leponwura Alhaji M.N.D. Jawula, former president or chairman of the Football Association. Is my guest today. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Let's know you. Let's know you. People have followed you at your time at when you were at the GFA. People have heard you, seen you. But let's know a bit about you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Accra in 1949. My mother coming from here, from Accra, and my father from the north, from Gonja, a Gonja chief. And I went to school in the north entirely, the primary and middle schools, then Tamale Secondary School, the famous Tamale School that has produced heads of state, vice presidents, top ministers, and top people in this country. I then did a stint in Carlton. First of all, Marlin School in England, where I did part of my sixth form, and then the University of Cape Coast for my first degree, University of Ghana, Legon, where I did 2 master's degrees. And of course, Gimpa, where I did my professional program as well.
Tell us about your association with sports. Have you always been a sports person? Is it something you dreamt about when you were young, that you get involved with sports, especially football?
Well, with football, because my mother came out of Accra, and that anytime she came to the north, anytime she came to Accra and she was going back to the north, she would buy me a football that I could use to play with my colleagues' friends. At that level, I would say my interest started very, very early. But then by the time I got to Tamale Secondary School, when I was the senior prefect of the school became very famous for football, and we had to play so many matches, and we had to organize. Therefore, I would say that from the point of view of organization of football and administration, I got interested right from my area, from the time when I was in the sixth form. In the area of sports proper, as a younger person, you not believe it, but I was a 100 meters runner and 200 meters as well. I was an athlete for my house in those days in Tamale School, and I was very prominent, especially in the 4x100 meters. You know, I used to be the anchor, and I used to do very well. Of course, now it's quite a time, and you know, and that is it. But sports has been part of me, you know, for quite a while.
Can we say it is that which drove you into especially club football? Your affiliation with club football?
Well, club football, when I was in Wale Wale, I opened the Wale Wale sub-district in those days. That was in 1979. And then we were then interested in promoting Real Tamale United. So I invited RTU to Wale Wale to come and ginger up the sport in this, because this was a new district that had opened, and I wanted sports to be part of the enthusiasm. So RTU came to Wale Wale. We had a team that we called Wale Wale Holala. RTU beat Wale Wale Holala 5-0. But then that was the beginning in a certain sense, because by 1983, when I was posted back to Tamale Regional Administration, RTU was then in a form of crisis under the administration of Bugri Nabu. So some people remembered that this young man had invited RTU before to Wale Wale. He had an interest, so I was invited to come and serve as the vice president of the club under Bugri Nabu in 1985. And since then, you can see that the sky has been the limit.
Let's talk about your time at the Ghana Football Association. What are some of the significant things you remember, and some of the challenges or the new things you think your era brought into the association?
Well, you know, our era was the era of youth football. If you recall that under 17, under 20 at the world level, we had made some strides. Particularly in 1995, I took the Ghana under 17 to Guinea for the African competition, and we won gold and went on to Ecuador to go and win the cup for Ghana. And then since then we also took part in under 20 tournaments, and I think we did quite well. We had the silver here and there. And the national team, of course, those were the days of Abedi Pele, Tony Yeboah, and so on and so forth. So we made our waves, you know, where it mattered. One would say that the World Cup was elusive to us, but we think that we had done our part to prepare the generation that eventually came in to make it at the World Cup, because all the players, Mohamed Gago, Sami Kufuor, Ahimful, and most of them were players that I worked with very, very closely. And eventually, you know, some of them got to the World Cup as well.
Before I'm going to ask you about certain clique in the FA, which people have perception out there that certain mafia in the FA, whether you encountered that. But before then, you mentioned youth football, and therefore that interests me a lot. Let's look at youth football and the issue of age cheating in our football. Most of the players you mentioned, only a few are able to graduate into being prominent key members of our national teams. Others couldn't make it. There are perception out there that they did not use their right ages. At your time, what confronted you on that issue?
It was one of the issues that worried us, because I remember when we went to Ecuador and Ghana performed well, the South American media took it on because they just could not understand how a team could come out of Africa and perform well. But what went for us then was that we were performing on altitude. Quito, the capital of Ecuador, is on very high altitude, and you had to be healthy and young enough in order to survive. We were at a place that it was like 1,800 meters above sea level. It was not a little thing at all. And when we won, we actually beat the Ecuadorian national team 1-0 in our first match. And so eventually went and beat Brazil 3-2 to leave the trophy. And people were wondering, they said perhaps we were cheating, but I don't think it was cheating per se. The problem we have with the age competition is that at that level, the leverage is more on parents and school teachers. They will usually guide the FA. And therefore, if they are not forthright with the truth, it's very difficult to know. But what I kept telling everybody was that, well, there are simple methods. Now, I know they're using some other method to find out about the bone marrow and so on and so forth.
And is it having effect on us?
Well, yes, because I think about half the team that we try to use for the under-17 could not make the grade. But more to it, what we were using in our time, we're using the dental formula, because we felt that you could not have your 32 teeth at 17, 18 years, etc., etc. And I think that was what we did at the time, and I believe that worked. But with the age thing, is principally about parents putting pressure to have their children in the teams, and they would work towards cutting the ages if at all that happens. And teachers, because we will see to have school records, you know. But of course, these ones would not always be the case, except that when they get on to more professional football at higher levels, and then they get interviewed, and then they talk about their education, or they get interviewed like I'm being interviewed, and the dates keep coming out, then certain things get revealed that, or perhaps he couldn't have graduated at age 8 or at age 6, and so on and so forth.
So you think the trend now is okay? It will help what we are going through now? Well,
definitely, if the system is able to capture the player well at the under-17 level, then that goes through. Because once the test is done at the under-17 level, there might be margin of error, because these scientific things do not have a total sense of accuracy. But definitely from under-17 level, when people know that they're going to be tested, the ages will come quite close to what it is, and that might go through. And I'm sure that should solve it.
Okay. My guest tonight is Lepunra Alaji M.N.D. Jawula. We are looking at his live at the GFA, and his live as a sports personality when he was at the helm of affairs, as well as his thoughts on development on the sports fraternity in the country. We take a break here. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back to Reviews. My guest this week is Lepungura, Alhaji M.N.D. Jawula, former FA boss. You're welcome back once again.
Thank you, Nana.
Now let's look at the league. Your time. How was it like at your time, and how did you think the FA contributed to the development of the league? I'm asking this question because recently there are reports or rumors or agitations that the FA only concentrate on our national teams, i.e. the Black Stars, and then neglect our league. How was it for you in your time?
To talk about the comparison, it is strange to relate because I handle the FA Cup now, and I know that I see the problem about spectating. Very difficult to understand because spectating in our time was huge. There's no doubt about it. Accra Stadium, RTU versus House of Oak was huge. Not talk about Kotoko House of Oak. I mean, the whole stadium will be full and people have to climb poles and so on just to have a view of what was happening. But it's difficult to explain. The explanations can come all the way from our interest in European leagues, television taking away much of the shine of the local team, our teams not going into Africa. There are so many things, you know. Sponsorship not being up to scratch and so on and so forth. So we have to put all together and then see what we can do. Definitely, spectating now has lowered as against our time. There's no doubt about that. Because we are talking about the stadium full all the time whenever Kotoko and House of Folk were playing. Now, it's quite a pleasure to
can't pinpoint exactly what the problem is now compared to that time.
First of all, now we have access we have more access to television. We have more access to international matches, live coverage of the English league, Italian league, German. We have more coverage. We have less on sponsorship. You know, I mean, as it were, you can see that over the past 2-3 years, our sponsors have not been doing exactly what they should do, and so on. What we kept saying in our time was that government will have to come in a certain way to encourage the private sector to look at their contribution as part of the tax structure, so that when they assist clubs, you look at whatever they're contributing and work it into their tax structure so that they would continue to help. In that wise, I think a company like Wenko sponsored RTU and they've taken advantage of it, and I think some other companies might do the same. I think we should emphasize more on that. More to it, we should look at what the South Africans did in the 1980s. They involved most of the banks in their leagues and got the banks to build some stadia here and there, in Johannesburg and in Pretoria and Durban and the rest. We have to involve some banks in the area of football specifically, encourage them and then see whatever can be done. Because for much of it, nearly all the politicians that we have been involved in football. In our time, then Vice President Mills, later on the President of this Republic, may so rest in peace, the current Vice President Emin Sata, who was then the Deputy Minister of Finance, was involved in a certain committee, including Nana Tudazi, Totobi Kwachi, and so on and so forth. They were all involved in pushing football to a certain extent. And I think the political elite must begin to show interest again, all over again. For instance, I think that government should commit itself, all governments should commit themselves to sponsoring clubs that qualify into Africa. At least they should be able to pay the flights for the club, they should be able to pay hotel bills, and perhaps they should be able to pay to bring in match commissioners and perhaps some other perhaps some referees and so on and so forth. If the government can pursue these areas a bit, the clubs will have a bit more money in such a way that they can motivate our players. Part of the difficulty is that our players leave our shores a bit too early. By the time a player makes the waves and then he's just beginning to attract crowds, people want to come and watch him, he's out of the country and he goes to play in a league that is not worth the name. I can give an example. Like Clote right now, he had made his waves. All of a sudden we hear he's about going out, you know. And therefore, if government can come in with a helping hand and assure clubs that when you qualify for FA Cup or for the league, we shall take a certain percentage of your expenditure in the way of sponsorship, so our players may remain and then feature in such a way that people can be expected to go out. People want to go and see footballers excel. They want to see their skills show, on the pitch, live, more than on television. But because they think that we don't have players that can attract them. In our days, you would take, like Abedi who was playing for RTU, you would go to Nkoko, and then everybody, it was Abedi versus Odum, who was the post for Ukwa United. They still don't be full. You know, Tony Yeboah was then playing for Cornerstones. If Cornerstones had any matches to play, and later on Ukwa United, the place is going to be full, and so on. And therefore, this is what it should be. We should find a way to maintain our players at home, at least for 2, 3, 4 more years, so that later on, new stars can come on board, that we can sustain the league as far as it is quite possible.
So you're advocating all hands should be on deck.
All hands should be on deck
to help our league.
Yes.
But talking about our league, you mentioned CAF. Let me find out. You are a member of the CAF Interclub Committee. There are complaints and concerns, especially from Ghanaian clubs, that you go to the CAF Champions League, you play, you win, then you spend more than you earn at the end of the tournament or the competition. What do you think CAF is not doing right or is doing right to help the clubs?
I've answered it partially already. Governments have to come in a bit and then help, because eventually when the clubs get to what we call the money zone.
It's not a sole prerogative of CAF.
Well, the clubs, through their sponsors and through their governments, should be pushed up a bit. In other countries, Ghana is not a very excellent example, but in other countries, governments help with ticketing and so on. They help the clubs halfway, so that when they perform and get into the money zone, the money could be quite attractive. 1.5 million, $2 million, and so on and so forth, at least, will eventually get to the clubs. But then they must be in the money zone. Like Chelsea is trying to get on board, Sunshine Stars of Nigeria, El Hali, and so on. They are at that stage. But when you get out very early, definitely you are not going to benefit from them. But at those early stages, the expectation is that clubs will have sponsorship from corporate bodies and from governments. But where this is not done, that is why these complaints come up. Because at the end of the day, we think that the biggest advantage that the CAF competitions give to clubs is that players get advertised. It's a showpiece, for them to excel and then to get advertised and for them to get other clubs to play in, whether on the continent or in Europe. And therefore, that is huge enough. The example that I can give is that in the last FA Cup competition that was won by Nania could not take part. Yeah. Therefore, they lost the advantage because they said they didn't even have money to start a competition. So some organization, corporate body, government, must push the clubs halfway, as I said. When they've been pushed halfway, by the time they get to the money zone, the money will come back in such a way that the players can then begin to benefit.
But you don't think CAF should increase the purse, probably? Well,
it is one of the discussions that take place often, but that is at the level of the executive committee. They alone can increase the purse. But I know it's something that they were talking about, and I know it's something that will be done very soon.
I remember saying I'll ask you about a certain clique or a certain mafia in the FA. Did you face any challenge with that at your time?
I think there were lots of challenges because football is such that because of the level, the passion that we have for our clubs and for our teams, certain people want to stay long enough in order to be of value or benefit to their clubs. So naturally, there is that perception out there that people stay in order to form a mafia, in order to influence decisions, to perhaps buy matches, perhaps to edge out other people to take their places and so on. That perception is very strong. But of course, insofar as people look at the roll call and see people staying in football for 20, 25 years, 30 years, insofar as it continues, that perception would continue. But to say that one saw it physically, one cannot say precisely that we saw it physically, but the fact that people have stayed long enough for them to be seen as a mafia as this. Why? Because they have the experiences. Our football in Ghana is full of rules and regulations. And insofar as you understand them, sometimes you are able to take advantage of the rules and regulations to make changes to league results and so on and so forth. I know this year President M.N.D has said that the Congress should find a way in order that results that are centered on matches played on the grid turf and not changes that are made because people go to the different committee and take advantage of it.
To have a club in the Premier League, your time, I know you were a keen member of the RTU at that time. Currently, Kwesi Nyantakyi is a key member, or I should say, is the bankroller of WA All Stars. People have criticized the conflict it will create in the league. What will you say about that?
I used to be worried about President Nyantakyi being the president of WA All Stars, and I even believe I made some remarks in the media and so on and so forth, because when Nana Butler became the president of the FA, he made a statement to the effect that Dwarfs, he was no longer interested in being a director of Dwarfs at the time. And I believe when I came on as president of the GFA, my interest in RTU also waned. But perhaps I cannot say I'm totally right, because what I feared has not come to pass. I think President Nyantakyi has comported himself in such a way that one cannot say he's done anything. I can't give one example that he's done anything to influence the results of our All Stars. They have never won the league. They have never won an FA Cup. They lose matches in WA as well as other people. So insofar as it is not clear, like in his case, he appears to have given the assignment to somebody to handle, and he is not seen on a daily basis. In any case, he cannot even do it because he's just too busy. With his current position on the CAF Executive Committee, he's nearly always outside. And the FA job itself is also quite a handful. And therefore, to me, insofar as he's not seen to be persisting to get his team qualified, I would not say that there's anything specifically terribly wrong about it. But initially, I was worried that that might be the case. But so far, I have not seen it. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, because he comes out of WA, especially he's a native of WA. If he does not do it, perhaps there's no other person who is ready to do it now with his own resources. And the people of that region might not get the opportunity to enjoy football at that highest level. So I think so far as he's not openly influencing any decisions, we should bear with him. Perhaps when he comes to do it and we see an example, then we can begin to complain. But for now, I think he has stayed clear of these controversies.
You're the chairman of the FA Cup committee, and recently we just ended the FA Cup. New DBRC image winners. Do you think the reason behind the FA Cup being staged or being brought up is being achieved?
Yeah, I think it shows, because first of all, we've managed to bring all the clubs at a certain level, at a certain power, Division 1 and the Premier Division and the Second Division. You see that by the time we got to the last but one round, the Division 1 teams were fairly prominent as well as the Premier, and some teams in the Premier Division had also been knocked off. That is the essence of it. Over and above that, the live coverage have ensured that people have seen certain players from Division 1 that they would not have seen before. And that has been a specific motivation for some of the players to go out there and excel. So I think that as far as it is, I see it, and I think that MTN have done quite a lot for us, and I believe that we are doing our best to give them the mileage that they also require. So far, I think the standard has been good. Officiating has been excellent. Spectating has not been the best, but of course, the second year. Perhaps by the time we get to the third year, we will get further sponsorship that will enable us to get more people to come and watch the matches.
Sports development in the country, sports investment especially in the country, not only football but sports in general, do you think it's something to write home about?
Well, if it's not something to write home about, we cannot say it. Because we need to do more generally in the area of sports, but we should not talk in such a way as to discourage the whole system. Because we need to do more about sports. I've said it elsewhere, that we go to Olympic Games and come with nothing, not even a calabash medal. It's not too good. We have got people who live on the mountains in Africa and they do well. We've got fisher folks in Ghana who could do well at swimming. We've got to pick people from these geographical areas in Ghana, take them out, spend some money. As the governments change, we should know that we've got people who are working to bring honor to Ghana. And I'm sure within 6-7 years, we should be making it. And along the line, we may even be lucky to get some sponsorship for some countries that will be willing to help us to attain our objectives.
Alhaji, it's time for us to go. But finally, let me ask you, has the chieftaincy taken something away from your participation in sports nowadays? Or you think
I think it has enhanced it.
Rather?
I cannot wear shorts as I wish. And I must always wear a hat. So that is the one I have. But I'm sure that when people see me at the stadium, they would like to give me at least a VIP chair, whether I'm in office or not.
Thank you so much, Alhaji. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
We're
much.
speaking to Lepomura M.N.D. Jawula, former FA boss and currently FA Cup committee chairman, as well as CAF Interclub committee member. It's been wonderful coming your way. Next week, we have another personality for you. Stay with us. Bye-bye.